Listen up. There's no more excuses.
We're empowering those who want the hustle by exposing the status quo.
The days of ordinary are over.
It's time to crush mediocrity and start discovering your greatest potential.
Welcome to the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation. To the Hustle Nation.
To the hustle nation.
To the hustle.
Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, we have Cindy Miller in the house. From the back nine of major championships to the meeting rooms of major corporations, Cindy uses decades of competitive golf experience to deliver programs that inspire, challenge, and teach individuals, teams, and corporations to improve performance and create solutions. As a certified behavior, motivation, and process specialist, she works with successful CEOs, entrepreneurs, managers, leaders who are frustrated with unmotivated, underperforming teams. As a former LPGA Tour player who currently competes on the official Legends Tour of the LPGA, she sits on the LPGA Top 50 Teachers list in the world, Golf Digest magazine list of top 50 women teachers in America, and has been nominated to Golf Magazine's Top 100 Teachers. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
We're excited to have you.
Excited to have you.
Certainly a lot to talk about. So many different things I want to ask about. But before we do that, why don't you start by telling everybody a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are now?
Well, it all started in Silver Creek, New York, about 35 miles south of Buffalo. I did not want to play golf. My parents played golf, and they would drag me to the golf course every weekend. And I have a brother and a sister. They're both older than me. My brother's 11 years older than me, and my sister 4 years older than me. And they got out of the house as soon as they can. Mom and dad were both alcoholics. They used to fight a lot. Dad was an entrepreneur, and they would sit at the bar and drink all night. And Dad used to beat up Mom regularly. So much so that my sister informed me when I was 10, it was my turn to call the cops on Dad. And so it was a household that you kind of wanted to escape. And I used to go swimming. The pool was my babysitter until I got fat in 8th grade and all the cute boys started to call me 10-ton Tessie. So clearly I didn't want to go swimming anymore. And my only other option was the golf course. So Dad bought me golf lessons, and I was actually pretty good at it. And Mom and her friends took me to an LPGA Tour event when I was 17. And I saw this girl named Laura Ball, who was a year older than me. And I saw this big, huge golf bag that was absolutely beautiful with her name on it and these gorgeous golf clothes and these fancy brand new, shiny shoes. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. And I want to play and I want to beat her. And so I came home and I was going to graduate from high school a year early so I could escape my household. And I had already applied to a school down the road. And I said, well, now I'm going to play college golf and I don't want to go to this school. And my dad said, well, where are you going to go? And there's no schools near here that have college golf teams. And I said, well, I'm going to write to Ben Hogan Company because I play their golf clubs, and I'll write to Golf Digest magazine and I'll find a school that has golf teams. And so he said, well, you're still going to go to this other school because you applied there. So I did. I went for 6 months and I was going to major in psychology because I was going to fix my family. Well, I got a D in psychology. So I was not good in that. And I wrote to these companies and they actually wrote back. And there was no internet at the time because I'm kind of old. And they had a list of schools. And the one that stuck out, which if you're from Buffalo, it would to University of Miami. So Suntan U wrote back to me and they sent me a big brochure with, of course, pictures of the pool and the palm trees. And I wrote back to them and I said, hey, I've got a 14 handicap. What do I have to do to come to your school? And they wrote back and said, well, the worst person on the team has a 4, but you're welcome to be a walk-on. And I didn't know what that meant. My dad said, well, you've got 1 year to earn a scholarship or you have to come home because we can't afford this place. So I went to Miami. I didn't even visit the school. My parents didn't even take me to the school. A mutual friend that was a captain for Eastern Airlines lived in Coral Gables, who had a summer cottage at the lake. and dropped me off at my dorm. I sat on the bed and I cried. And then I stopped my pity party and I got up off the bed and I hit balls. And then I graduated the number one player on the team 4 years later, and we won back-to-back national championships my junior and senior year, and I was an All-American and team captain. So little
Awesome.
did I know at the time, I was running away from one thing. So, what motivates you to action? You're either trying to stop a pain or you're trying to achieve a goal. And it was both of those things that made me get up off that bed in the dorm, to go hit balls. I was running away from a household, again, thinking, okay, you're the youngest one. He's now going to kill mom. But again, I want to play on the LPGA tour. So that's what started it all.
That's an incredible story. I love that you shared that with us. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that information. I'm curious. So how did things change, if at all, with your family and your parents as you navigated
Well,
through college?
he didn't kill her. And my junior year, he got sick and he got an aneurysm and he went in the hospital. My brother was still in Buffalo, so he kind of oversaw, what was going on. And my dad ended up dying of an aneurysm. And the funny thing was, nationals were going to be in Hawaii my junior year. And again, it wasn't like all of a sudden Cindy was great. I mean, we had a phenomenal golf team, and I was always trying to be in the top five. They play five, they count four, which because you were a college coach. And I would sit at the steps. I went to Doral. I took lessons from Eddie Bush at Doral. I went over to Hidden Valley Driving Range where Bob Toski was teaching, and I said, he would have all these rich people from New York City come in and give lessons, and can I watch you teach? Do you care if I sit and watch? And again, what I find nowadays is I don't have hungry, thirsty students. Like, I was crazed. I was a lunatic. I would ask 1,000 questions because, again, I am not going home, burn the bridges. I'm going to get this. So I asked him, will you help me? I'll do anything. I'll pick up balls. I'll sweep the range. I can't afford to pay you. And he saw the burn and he said, I'll do anything to help you. So my dad was in the hospital, in a coma the night that I got home. And I walked into that hospital and I grabbed his hand and I said, Daddy, I qualified to go to Hawaii. And I know he squeezed my hand and he died that night. I mean, that was like a big deal. Now, when we went to Hawaii, we were playing against Nancy Lopez and Tulsa. They were the team to beat. And I only
Nancy
counted
Lopez.
one.
Wow.
Yeah. They were the team. We even had T-shirts made. The Miami No Name Stroke It Better, right? And and we beat them, which is like, yeah. And most of the team was from New York, right? And you wouldn't even know any of them. We all played on tour at one point, but nobody was superstars. But it didn't matter because we were all consistent, right? And so I think I only counted 2 rounds, but it didn't matter. I qualified to go. I backed up the team. Again, I was never a superstar, but I qualified to play. So what was the big deal? I'm not going to quit.
So, Cindy, having a plan B, right? So it seems like one of the things that fueled you is you didn't have a plan B. It was plan A, I'm all in. And one of the things I see when you talk about, I think, mindset of people today, I feel like a lot of people they want to dip their toe in the water on something. And so, to your point of that kind of burning desire, how have, in your life, how have you replicated that, right? So certainly in that point of time in your life, you had no plan B. And, I'm curious, whether it be through your coaching or your own life, how have you seen people that maybe have had more desire than the other, whether they have that plan B or how they convince themselves they have no plan B or what do you think really drives that burning behavior?
Well, so what I've done is I've started a nonprofit, and I've thought about this, and I'm a competitive lunatic, and I'm married to someone who's not, and Alan and I are the only married couple in the world that have played on all 4 major tours. So Alan Miller happens to be the second purest ball striker Dave Pell's ever tested. And he had a birthday last week. And I posted a video randomly on Instagram. And I said, hey, if a video of his golf swing. We had to do a corporate outing a couple weeks ago at Pinehurst, and he swung, right? Because he only plays when he has to play, because, you know, he made over 150 cuts on the PGA Tour. He's a past champion life member, you know, so, you know, he's like, I don't need to play anymore, you know, and that's what's funny. Whereas I'm like, well, I never really achieved that greatness. So I'm like always looking for the key, right? I still play on the Legends Tour anyway. So I posted this video. I said, hey, if you see this sweet swinger, wish him a happy birthday. So this random guy I've never heard of made this comment. Alan Miller, 5% error. The best Dave Pell's ever tested on the PGA Tour. Absolutely phenomenal. I was like, really? I didn't know he was that good. I'm so glad I asked him to marry me, right? So anyway, I created this nonprofit. It's called the Pursue Your It Foundation. So if you choose to pursue your it, which I give people the choice, I'm not going to push this in your face. You have to want to pursue your it. There's 3 things in this box. The first thing in the box is a nail. A nail? Yes. So there's this traveling salesman driving down the road. He gets lost. He sells seeds to the Agway plant. He sees this driveway, pulls down the driveway. He sees a farmer sitting on the porch in his rocking chair, smoking a pipe. Laying next to him is a black lab. So he says, forgive me, but I got lost. Can I ask you directions? Yes. So the black lab is making this noise like, and he's like, I don't want to ask him. He thinks, is this guy growling at me or is he in pain? He doesn't say anything. The guy gives him directions. He says, thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it. As he's walking away, the dog does it again. He goes, forgive me, but what's the matter with your dog? He said, oh, nothing. He's just laying on a nail. He says, laying on a nail? Why doesn't he get up? He said, because it doesn't hurt bad enough. So are you laying on a nail? Should you get up? So again, you're either motivated by 2 things. You either need to get off the nail or you want to achieve a goal. So again, I wanted to get out of the house because I was scared to death. I got to escape this horror, right? And I want to play on the LPGA Tour. So there were 2 reasons I went to Miami. You follow? Most people don't have a big enough why. They don't really, it doesn't hurt bad enough. Oh, I can live like this. My job isn't that bad, you know. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's not. So their why isn't big enough. Got it? The second thing in the box is a mirror. You need to look in the mirror. So I had to look in the mirror. How bad are you? Well, everybody's got a 4 handicap or less. Mine was 14. Okay. Why? Are you afraid to win? Or are you afraid to lose? A little bit of both. Okay. Where does your drive go? Where do you miss it? Do you keep stats? Well, I don't want to keep stats. Okay. Then don't be on my golf team. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I know, Cindy, where's your stats? Well, my dad has them. I don't want your dad to have them. You're 11 years old now. You're old enough to keep your own stats. You don't need daddy to help you or mommy. It's not their fault. You're the one that's holding the club. Stop whining. You follow? I'm a competitive control freak. So I'm certified in behavior and motivation. So we need to know, like, I'm a competitive control freak. I'm more like Tiger Woods. So what are my tendencies? I'm going to fire at the pins and make triple. And then I'll make a few birdies. What's my husband? He is the tortoise. He has 18 or 14 fairways and 18 greens. What's his issue? He's not going to make a lot of birdies. He's totally, absolutely consistent and very boring, right? Well, that's going to make him make more money. He's a better tour player than I am because I'm a lunatic. Well, then maybe Cindy needs to not fire at the pins. You follow? But you need to know who you are. Make sense? So you have to look in the mirror. The third thing in the box is a seed. Once you know why you're getting off the nail or what you're shooting for, and you look in the mirror and you have to do something about you, you have to plant a seed. Now, one of the things I didn't tell you is, Alan, what do alcoholic children do? They marry an alcoholic. So I used to party. I met Alan when I was at the University of Miami. So I met his buddy, Dirtbag, who was a professional gambler at the Rathskeller. Dirtbag was buying shots for everyone. So, of course, if you're from Buffalo, you know how to drink. So you follow the guy at the Rathskeller who's got $100 bills, who's buying shots for everyone, who's friends with Alan Miller, who caddied for him at the Doral Eastern Open. So Alan Miller was an alcoholic. So we get married. And then after a while, I'm like, he needs to stop drinking. So I stopped drinking. And then he doesn't want to stop drinking. So now I say, you got to stop drinking. So he goes away. Then he tries to commit suicide. Then he comes home. Then he tries to commit suicide again. So then I file for divorce. So then I go to this seminar where this woman's talking about how her husband drove her nuts. Now I start to pay attention because I got a husband who drives me nuts, right? So then she wrote a book called Personality Plus. So I pay attention. So I run to the back of the room. I buy the book. I take the personality assessment for me. Then I take it for him because he's helpless and he can't do it himself. Then I read off all of his, right, all of his weaknesses. And I'm like, no wonder. I thought you acted like this on purpose just to drive me crazy. Now I find out that he's the direct opposite of me, which is why you marry him, because you need what he has. So then I'm like, wow, I'm not the only one that does this. Everyone does this. So now I go get certified in this. Well, then I file for divorce. Then I lose the divorce because he's been in the mental hospital. Now he stopped drinking. I lose the divorce. So he's going to turn 50. He goes and teaches these camps. He comes back and he's still not drinking. So when we have a talk, and I'm like, it's not like I want to get divorced because I want to marry somebody else, because most guys are all jerks, right? And all women would say that. And once you train one, why would you want to train another one, right?
That's fair.
So we decide we really like each other. You're my golf buddy. So I call the lawyer and I go, hey, did they file the papers in the courthouse yet? No. Okay. So maybe we don't want to do this. My lawyer goes, what are you, nuts? No. Can they rip up the papers? I think so. So he calls the judge. The judge goes, are they crazy? No. Rip up the papers. So they ripped up the papers. That was, I think, 25 years ago. So now we're still married. He doesn't drink anymore. So where's the seed going? So when I was going through all this stuff, I would go to counselors, and I went to a lot of them. I must tell you, most of them are whacked. Maybe that's why they want to be counselors. So I happen to be a Christian, even though I swear like a truck driver, but I haven't sworn yet here, have I? No.
Feel free to, though. Let it flow.
No, I won't. So I was going to this counselor, and he was a Christian guy, and I'm crying and whining about Alan because it's always his fault. It's never my fault, even though I have a mirror that I should look in. And the boogers are going in my mouth and my face and everything. And so he goes, let me go get you some toilet paper. He comes back with the wad of toilet paper and he shoves it in my face. And he says, the Lord told me to tell you something. Really? What did he say? He said, he told me to tell you that he's planted a seed in your life and you keep digging it up to see if it's growing. He told me to tell you to stop digging it up. You need to put it in the light and water it and give it time to grow. And if you do, there's no telling how good this will end up. And I kind of went, oh, okay. And I should shut up now. So I did. And that's how I came up with my IT box. And that's how I came up with my nonprofit. So now I help kids and people and adults pursue their IT with a nail, a mirror, and a seed. So there, that's my story.
That's amazing.
I love that story.
So as you talk about kids, right? You work with a lot of kids and training and coaching and finding their it. I think a lot of times people today, like a lot of generations, right? They say, well, the youth today don't know how to do this, don't know how to do that. They're, their heads are in their phones and all that sort of stuff. What are things that you see that are really, but at the same point, I would say, I feel like every generation also brings skills that the previous generation didn't. So, as you're working with kids and, helping them find their it, what do you see are those kind of differences that you see in the youth today that you think can propel them to kind of follow your three things and achieve their it?
Well, the thing that's missing is they haven't felt pain. I think they're being saved from the pain. I think they need to become more resourceful. And if they were allowed to become more resourceful, I think they would have a lot unlimited ideas on how they could find and pursue their it. I think one of their things would be the internet. So I have gone into schools. I started out going personally into the schools and delivering the program, and then
Okay.
found, I can't cancel golf lessons because I'm self-employed. So I can't stop making money to go do this for free into the schools. So how can I scale this? And I'm still trying to figure that out. So if you have a great idea, let me know. So then I tried to get the teachers to deliver the program, and the teachers didn't have a large enough giver meter to deliver the program. So then the program didn't make a big enough impact. One of my motivators, one of my lowest motivators is helping people, which I was shocked. I'm like, wait a minute, I help people all day. Well, I want to help people who want to help themselves. So one of my rules is, if a school says, "Oh, we want you to deliver the program," my rule is I have to come in and do an assembly with everyone, tell my story, and give you the opportunity to choose to do the program. So if you choose to do the program, I'm all in and I'll do everything to help you. So I don't want to teach at a private country club. I teach at a public driving range. You have to come see me. You have to have a big enough pain to get off the nail, or want to break 100 or 80 or 90 or whatever it is, right? You have to come see me with a pain. So that's my rule. I don't want some kid going, "Yeah, okay, lady, what do you want?" Because then I want to slap you in the face. So now what I'm doing is I'm teaching a lot of kids, and if they are junior, middle school to high school, and they have issues with friends, then I give them the assessment, personality, the motivation, and then I have a call with them, and then I say, well, here's the program, and you can go on the program, and you can figure out what you want to be, do, and have. So I don't know. I think they need a lot of help with this generation. What do you think?
Cindy, I tend to agree, but I feel like every generation says that about the generation after them, and that's probably happened in perpetuity. But I'm really curious. I do think this, though, that there are more younger people that don't know what they want. And I think having clarity of vision, something that we talk about because we coach and train people too, just like you, but in a different capacity. It's shocking to me how many people we talk to where, you'll ask them, what is your vision? And just as simple as this year, what do you want to achieve this year? What's that look like? And they look around the room and they can't answer you. And if they do, they're just making things up. And I don't know how closely this is correlated, but I feel like it is your it and your vision are probably two in the same. But I'm just shocked how many people don't know what it is. How many people do you see that don't have their it or don't know what it is?
Almost all.
That's bizarre. That's why. How can you
Well,
not
and
have an
again,
it?
it's adults as well.
Yeah.
And again, how well do you know yourself? So it's like me when someone says, you don't want to teach in Manhattan at a fancy private club? Uh, 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 are you kidding me? You want me to have 500 bosses and I'm going to say
Yeah.
the wrong thing to Mrs. Smith? And she's going to get me fired in 5 seconds? I have a fancy club in Charleston that wants me to come and be their director of instruction. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'll come once a month and teach your women, and they're going to love me, and I'm going to leave. No,
Yep.
bye. See you later. Because again, I know me, and you need to know me. So again, the more you know yourself, everybody has gifts and talents, that's why this is so important with this assessment, for you to know who you are.
Yeah.
And then you're comfortable in your own skin. Once we understood that with Alan and I, then it wasn't driving me nuts. I mean, the guy's never had a speeding ticket. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. right? Whereas me, I'm friends with the cops. So that's it's so now I give him the research projects. We all have gifts and talents. Instead of beating someone up or browbeating them, you know, with my clinics, I'm like, okay, how many here are accountants or engineers?
Oh, yeah,
This
that's
is your
helpful.
gift and talent. You know what I mean? So again, it's everything in life, and everyone's born with gifts and talents, and everybody needs to know that. So it's so important for kids to do this and know this.
Hmm.
You should include this in all your stuff.
We
For
should.
sure.
You talk a
Email
lot
me.
about assessments. I talk a lot about audits, but I think whatever you do, you still have to develop self awareness. But more importantly, you have to be honest with yourself. Because Dustin says this a lot: is there are so many people that say, "Well, I am hustling. I'm working 50 hours a week." When in actuality, they're probably not. We all wear that as a badge of honor, right? And so when you start to break down your time, you're like, "Oh, well, maybe I was at work for 45 hours, but I was working for 30." And I just think you have to be honest before anything else. And then you have the information to say, well, maybe this does hurt more than I thought. Maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
True. True. And could you do it better? So again, we have three beautiful children, and my middle son's like, "Do you know how old you are? Do you know how much you work? Maybe you shouldn't work so much." And I'm like, "Do you really think that I would be okay sitting back at home watching TV?" I mean, now maybe I do it too much the wrong way. Maybe I could do it better. You know, maybe I need to take a peek in the mirror and say, okay, is this really the smartest way for me to do this? Maybe I do need to look in the mirror, but and I think we can all do an audit, right?
Well, I think
Like,
the one that stuck with me a lot was the nail, because to your point, and I don't even think this is just youth. I think this is just the world these days. Everyone is so afraid of failure or misstep or letting someone fall down, and I think it prevents a lot of the learning. I mean, we were talking about this. I was with some friends in the last few nights. Actually, we were talking about, like, with kids. I mean, as a parent, if you don't know where your kid is in any 30-minute increment, you're almost like a bad parent. It's like, how do you not? Aren't you tracking your kid? Aren't you aware of exactly where they are and the speed that they're going? And all, it's well, I mean, I don't. I mean, I could look if I need to. And you think about that as an adult, you're only you feel like you need to do it because, otherwise, from a peer perspective, it's like, well, don't you know where your kid is? No, I don't know. I haven't talked to him in an hour. They, you know, they could be in a ditch, but they're probably not.
well, and
Well,
that's the thing. When I was little, we were outside all day long until it was dark, and
yeah,
building forts with wood, and you know, eh, playing kickball and football, and I'll see you when it's dark. So what did
and
we learn?
exactly. And I think, I mean, it even goes to adults these days, right? It's well, I want to make sure you don't fail. So I want to give you all these tools and resources. We have in our I run a insurance brokerage, and we have a lot of you know people that come in, and some people, like in sales, that say, man, I just want to kill it. I want to kill it. I want to kill it. And then after a period of time, it's like, well, I don't have the tools and resources to win. It's like, well, you have every tool and resource known to man, right? It's like, but you gotta go get it, right? Like, I mean, no one's going to just hand it to you, right? I mean, every business is competitive. You gotta go out, create value. You gotta go tell the story. But there's this mentality of like, well, it's not me. It's got to be the environment I'm in. And to Chris's point, I think every generation is interesting because every generation brings new skills. They bring a new perspective. But kind of like what you mentioned with spouses, right? A lot of time, the previous generation, a lot of times counteracts the next generation, right? And that's not a bad thing. I think then they challenge each other, and but it's this lack of, I shouldn't say lack. It's in individuals. I think a lot of times that nail
Well,
thing
I
is
think
like,
it's also how you grow up. Okay. Um, We have kids that we teach whose parents save them. And we have kids whose parents don't save them. You have to learn by losing. Don't you agree, Chris?
100%. I think that's true in sports. I think it's true everywhere. And I joke with my son, who's an aspiring quarterback on his JV football team. And I'll oftentimes when they lose, I'll tell him or tell my wife, I say, it's good to get your ass kicked a couple of times. And people look at me sometimes cross-eyed, like, what are you talking about? I said, you should know what it feels like to lose by 30 points in a basketball game or a football game, or, to walk off the field holding your arm because it hurts. You should know what pain feels like, because I think it motivates you more to get better. Like, I'm going to get faster so that I don't get sacked as much. And I'm going to coach up my team. I'm going to spend more time doing that, because then they can protect me better and I can throw more touchdowns, so on and so forth. I've always said this too. When we talk about pain, I talk about failure. And I think that failure many times is painful, but that, to me, that's the gasoline on the fire that makes me want to work harder. It's like, I don't want more of that. I want less of that. But oh, by the way, I've also learned so much more from failures and shortcomings than I have from my victories. I mean, you learn stuff from that too, but you get on this soapbox, on this high horse, and you almost feel like you can do no wrong. So I think it's good to have life throw curveballs at you and to get proverbial beat up. And just like, golf, I'm going to throw a golf reference at you. In my personal experience, both with the people I've been around and myself, is the moment I have my best round of the year, it is every time followed up by my worst round of the year. Oh, I'll figure it out. I got it.
I've got it now. The worst 4 words in golf.
I think if you're just like 1 or 2 strokes better, then you can keep that momentum going, because your expectations don't really change a whole lot. But as soon as you think like, oh, that's it, I'm going to start gripping it and ripping, it's all downhill from there.
I think it's also good to know what motivates you. So again, if somebody's, my whole life I've been told you're not good enough, which is probably why I've never given up.
It's great motivation.
It's super motivation. And being from a small town, with not, and our son's the same way. We've got 3 kids, but the middle one is a really good player. He's going to the Mid-Am, in 2 weeks. And he's the same. Tell me what I can't do and look out.
Does he know anybody he could get lessons from?
He listens to Daddy, but I'm his mental bammer.
So I'll say something, though. I think that for people like you and me, like I was told by my guidance counselor that, with my grades and my ambitions, I was never going to make it to college. And I secretly gave her the middle finger and I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. But that motivated me. Right. And I just remember that time, and I'll never forget what she said to me. I don't hold it against her. That's probably the strategy she used for certain kids to get them back in line. But unfortunately, now we see more people potentially break, where we bring in mental health issues, and that could be a whole nother conversation. But it's unfortunate that as much as it works, it can probably break people as well.
I agree. Yeah. And it's sad.
Cindy, thank you for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation. I feel like this is another one that could have just lasted for hours. I love your story, and I love that everything that you do has purpose behind it with your IT program. So thank you for being on the show today. But before we let you go, can you take a moment to tell our listeners where they can find you? How can they engage with you online?
Instagram at Cindy Miller Golf, LinkedIn Cindy Miller, Twitter at Cindy Miller Golf, and cindymillergolf.com. And I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Excellent.
All right. For all the listeners out there, thank you for tuning in today. We appreciate your ears, the downloads, and everything. Until next time, peace.
Thank you for being part of the Hustle Nation. If you're serious about raising the bar in your personal and professional life and willing to go all in on your success, head over to hustleleaders.com. Here you can get access to our Hustle Productivity ebook, attend our Hustle Masterclass, or challenge yourself to the 30-Day Hustle Challenge. Pairing these tools and training with the Hustle Nation podcast will help you advance to a whole new level. Until next time, stay hungry and inspire those around you to hustle.